Hello, everybody. Today I have got the Page of Wands as the obstacle and the Wheel of Fortune as the opportunity. Here's the sequences they appear in here. So let's get started with the obstacle. Page of Wands. Um, this is this is like this is a guy or a gal. This is a person who transforms the physical world. This card symbolizes an individual who is highly motivated to engage in physical activities that have a transformative or creative nature on physical. I kind of see it as just being limited to physical things in the world, not really engaging in other people so much yet. This could still be an impulse motivated by like sexual needs, physical needs, impulsive, creative needs, just do something. You just feel this urge to do something. So it's possible that the transformations, that the actions of transformation and creation that this person engages in are related to, exploring their sexual desires, their sort of passionate desires, but it's not necessarily limited to that. Just any creative kind of almost uncontrollable creative outbursts that terraform the world, um, and as an obstacle, this could, I think, imply situations, for instance, like going going way overboard with how hard you train. I love working out. It's fantastic. It feels great. It's good for you. It's healthy. It's a great long-term investment on the quality of your life. But there are certain people that just really push it to this point where it devours their life. And at a certain point, um, physical exercise, bodybuilding, it could be a dietary thing as well. Like you can overdo all these things and end up hurting yourself. Um, having you could essentially just have an ironic result that is the exact opposite of what you wanted. You probably would have, in those cases, it's like you'd be better off not having done that thing in the first place because now you're like, you could seriously damage yourself. There was when I was going to the gym regularly, there was a lot of guys that I knew there that maybe not a lot, but a significant number of guys that I had met and talked to that said you know, they pushed themselves really hard one time and they blew out a tendon and now they're fucked. They can't do sports anymore. There's really no operations that could fix it. So I think this card could symbolize that kind of potential danger, getting too obsessive with how much getting too radical with how much you transform yourself physically, pushing yourself too hard. Also, I think this could often this kind of urge to transform the world on a physical level can manifest itself in how people try and control their environment. So as people are just they're always they're always renovating or they're always building something. They always have to be changing things, moving things around. There's a lot of great stuff that could come out of that, but seeing as we're only looking at the kind of obstacle warning aspect of this card, I think I think being aware of just how much you can misdirect your own energy in it's almost like obsessive compulsive behavior. Like you just can't stop fussing with something, trying to get it perfect, or organizing things. It could be something like getting people who have that OCD that like they can't stop cleaning, and it's like at a certain point, the extreme cases are like your hands are clean, you washed your hands 6 times now. You know they're very clean, but you can't stop. And then a half hour later, they're like, your hands are all just raw, from too much soap, too much yeah. So those kinds of, I think this could be a warning for those kinds of activities. The motivation behind them, that energy for creative expression and change, and reshaping the world around you on a physical level. That's a great energy to be filled with. It's a great state to be inspired in that way. Because there's a lot of people who just, they suffer from the opposite. They never really feel like doing anything. So certainly that's to be appreciated. But this card is a warning to the potential excesses of those types of pursuits. And then, oh yeah, and I also like how these guys, both of them have. I mean, the Waite one has a lot of yellow. He's wearing a lot of yellow, and the Marseille card's got the yellow shoes. I feel like this kind of signifies it's often people motivated by an idea. Yellow representing the intellect, abstract ideas, things like that, information. So it's often people, you know, going, yeah, just going past their emotional, intention beyond that inspiration, and pursuing some idea of some perfect degree of completion. So it's like this fixation on some abstract goal could also be the cause of this. Yeah, and then as far as the opportunity, got the Wheel of Fortune. This is I love this. This card's really cool. It could be really tough to read too, because it only kind of has that one sort of humanoid character in the top left, and it's well, it's not really a human. It's supposed to be like an angel of some sort. I think this card. I think this card messes a lot of people up that are used to interacting with the Waite deck on the basis of you know the kind of intuitive feelings they get by looking at the characters, the expressions of their faces, the posture of their body. Like, just hear the neighboring cards, the Hermit and Justice. Okay, we could, I think most people, they look at those cards, they have some empathic response to these individuals. But then you look at the Wheel of Fortune, it's like, okay, that's just a bunch of stuff there. What does it mean? Um, being being a number 10 card, I think that often this has a really opposite perceived meaning from what I think it means. I think this card represents almost like a stillness or a freezing of the world, of life, of the whole development process, the whole endless growth journey. The thing that's often described, again, I don't really agree with it, but the fool's journey, like, um, yeah, I think this card kind of represents that paradoxical, saying the only constant is change, right? And I think this card symbolizes the constant aspect of that phrase. And I generally see this card more as a as a warning. It's like as a default, but we're looking at the opportunity to get something positive out of this, and I got one of those too for you. Don't worry, I got all the bases covered here. So yeah, I usually see this as an indication that the the perception of the world as being guided by the fates or destiny, or these you know beings, or these abstract spiritual ideas. Like, I kind of see this card as like the anti-tarot card. This is like the don't take yourself too seriously. Like, it's like the deck of the tarot making fun of itself. In the Waite card, especially, he brought over a lot of astrology stuff for the Golden Dawn. So we got some of the fixed zodiac signs, in the clouds, and they're all reading, you know, they're reading books of order, these white books of how things are, how things operate on this spiritual, metaphysical sort of plane. And yeah, and I think that this card is generally a warning that all of those all of those described machinations and oscillations and changes, that are governed by the divine, that it's it's kind of not really a bunch of changes, and you could just get stuck in this idea of perpetually following what you think are like all these changes, and it's just this, really what you're doing is you're just rigidly adhering to one system of looking at the world. It's just the system has been designed in a way to offer you, a variety of programming, so to speak. It's like not being aware of the fact that you watch TV every day because you're too busy focusing on the fact that you're watching, well, I watch a different channel every day. And even when I watch the same channel, there's different programs. It's like this card is like the meta, like it's still TV. It's still the same thing. All the little details inside, and yeah, and as a number 10 card, signifying that like absolute, that state of perfection and order, but also absolute rigidity and stillness. And uh, it's like this state completely just suppresses the ability for anything new to happen, for any change to happen. It's a perfectly ordered state. Um, I think it's very oppressive in a lot of ways. Now, that's kind of that's the bad side, I guess. The really positive way I see of interpreting this, that I think in general it's just a great outlook. Um, is It's the idea to look at the world as a place and an experience, I guess, or journey, whatever you want to call it, that offers like an an unlimited amount of new paradigms for you to rise to. I think sometimes people have this worry, and I think often it's subconscious. People don't even realize that they have this sort of estimation of the world. But I think that often people put off advancing to the next level, whatever it is, taking the next step, because they're worried they're going to get to the end too early. You know, people are like people are worried they're gonna, I don't know, hit the metaphorical retirement, and then find themselves in a place where they're just gonna be like, oh shit, okay, I got to the end of life. There's nowhere to go. Um, and and I think that there's a real opportunity in embracing and essentially just choosing to believe the uh, the opposite of that no matter how many times you pick a new direction and pursue it fully, and you know master it or get bored and switch and whatever, it's that as far as the wheel is concerned, as far as something where it's, you're symbolically going through this repeating process, that it's that either the revolutions would theoretically take so long that you don't need to worry about getting back to where you started because you've got plenty of time to spend on the rotations, or that if you do get back around to the same place where you started from, by the time you get there, you're going to be a completely different person. There's going to be a whole lot of new meaning and new value, and new opportunity, or like opportunities for new experiences, for a new way of just getting pleasure or excitement or enjoyment or meaning from whatever that thing is that maybe you've seen. Maybe it's a repeating theme. Um, with the tarot in general, one of the things that I love about it is that, like, I've been I've been playing around with the tarot for a really long time, and it's the same thing applies with the tarot. It's like every time you draw the same card, it's it's never quite the same, because it's like, oh, I haven't seen this card in a couple days, a couple weeks, a couple months, and I've changed, and the world has changed. The card is the same, but the way I now interpret the symbolism of the card is it's never the same as, or at least that's certainly, I think that's certainly the better way of interacting with let's say with something like this with these cards, as opposed to, you know, the card pops up and then you go, oh yeah, this card means this, and you recite the definition. And I guess really, like, even in that case, if you're just reciting one of those, I remember one of my friends, she would do tarot card readings and she would like put the cards out and then she would pull out this little book and literally just go, turn to the page and go, this card means, and then list off like just the just like the kind of assortment of adjectives and nouns. Like she wouldn't even really turn it into any sort of, she wouldn't try to turn it into a narrative or to find a narrative within it. She would just like list off the words. So like literally for her, every time, let's say she flipped over the Wheel of Fortune, she would just say the same thing, right? Um, but even that, if you think about it, even that extremely rigid and limited way of doing the readings, um, the meaning of the words changes over time. You know, like when these cards were being made, I don't know. This is the first thing that I can think of when the Waite cards were being illustrated. Um, wheels described certain things, but you know, we didn't like there weren't as many steering wheels. And by the time you go back to the Marseille, there was definitely no steering wheels. So the idea of a wheel as an object that you interfaced with your hands, it's like we're looking at two radically different times here when like wheels were a hands off or a hands on device. Like just the fact that when the Marseille cards were drawn, no one would consider a metaphorical interpretation of, you know, the wheel of fortune turning or standing still. They just weren't able to associate it with steering a vehicle. They could associate with the movement, the forward movement of a vehicle, but so yeah, so even if the definitions are exactly the same and you don't look for a deeper meaning in them, um, just the nature of the words changes as the world changes, as society changes. But yeah, so I think the opportunity of this card is to not worry about either getting back around to the beginning, and finding yourself back where you started, or getting to some sort of metaphorical endpoint when there's no more room for growth and evolution and personal paradigm shifts. Don't worry about maybe not jumping fully into that hobby you've been thinking about. It's like, don't worry, this won't be your last hobby. You might as well just go all in. And if the excitement in that thing exhausts itself, it's like, don't worry, that's not going to be your last. It's not going to be the last thing in your life that um, gives you meaning or that you're passionate about. There's always going to be more things, and even if you come around to the same themes, they will take on a new meaning because of the growth that you've incurred in life. So yeah, that's gonna be it for me today. So yeah, beware of, you know, beware. It sounds so menacing, where it's really just be aware. Be aware, be mindful of of you know really great impulses, and inspirations towards creativity that could manifest themselves in excess, or certainly in excess of uh, like being reasonable, being considerate of how your actions affect things. Um, don't completely surrender yourself to your physical impulses and the impulses to change things. Don't overexercise. Don't push the physical world too far in an impulsive manner, and um, don't be afraid to you know don't be afraid to evolve to that next paradigm. don't also, it's kind of like the opposite. See, it's always so, eventually you just find some relationship between the two. So this is like, yeah, so this is like, don't suppress your growth or interest in different things. Because yeah, there's plenty of room to keep going and keep exploring things over the course of your life. That's going to be it for today. Thanks for watching. I will see you tomorrow. Take care.